upset or angry about it. So that reaction that you had toward that thing is based on your reality. The reaction that the other person had of that same situation is based on their reality. And we'll get into a little bit more on this, your viewpoint of reality and someone else's viewpoint on reality, and what L. Ron Hubbard termed as some differences in that. Okay, so you get the idea of reality, and maybe you've run into those circumstances where you've had a different reality from someone else, a complete no reality to someone else, or someone tried to force their reality onto you, or you rejected someone's reality, all these different variations. So let's talk about reality. I'm going to give you a couple of quotes here from L. Ron Hubbard, and we're going to break that down a little bit, and hopefully it'll give you greater understanding and then something you can apply in your life to your betterment. Okay. So I'm taking these quotes from this book, Scientology, The Fundamentals of Thought. This is the book L. Ron Hubbard wrote that goes over the basic principles of Dianetics and Scientology. And once you read this book, you really will have a good grasp on some basic and fundamental concepts and ideas in Scientology, and it really will give you a greater understanding. So if you're looking for something, that book, fantastic for that. Many other things in it, but that's my comment for today. Okay, so here's what L. Ron Hubbard said in this book, Reality. I'm going to give you the quote here. Reality could be defined as that which appears to be. Reality is fundamentally agreement. What we agree to be real is real. Okay, so we're going to break that down. And before I do, just going to give you one more line. Separate section. He goes over the ideas of these concepts of this affinity reality communication triangle. Goes over a couple of different points. I want to add one more thing. He says, reality equals the way things appear. Equals reality is apparency. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit in reverse on breaking those things down. I want to discuss, first of all, the definition of apparency. So something which is apparent is really the thing, or what it appears to be, which is quite distinct from what it actually is. Okay, now we're going to definitely get into a little bit of a cross and possibly some gray areas with these definitions, and possibly a little bit circular, using one word to define another and that sort of thing. So let me try and break it down for you this way. When there is something that exists in the physical universe, let's say that it is a wall. Myself and another person could stand side by side and look at that and say, that is a wall. We could both agree and share that reality. Now, I could stand there and look and say that there is a wall there, and someone else could stand beside me and say, that is not a wall. And I could then say, looking for proof of that opinion, I would say, okay, is there a wall there? And they say, no, there is no wall there. And I'd say, great, I want you to walk in that direction, directly south from your current position. Take a compass out and sort of show that direction. I want you to walk 10 paces in that direction, and let's see what happens. And sure enough, if in the physical universe, the actual existence of a wall is confirmed with that person slapping into it, who's right? Who's wrong? Does that person then relinquish their idea and say, oh, actually, yes, there is a wall there. Now I do get that point. And it may be sometimes things like that that are required to get across to someone your reality. But my example there was merely to demonstrate that what we could say as a starting point on reality is we could simply say things in the physical universe that are detectable and observable by the general or common person, if we could say it like that, is what is reality. Okay, so I know what you're saying is like, well, there's a few exceptions to that. What if someone is colorblind? What if someone actually has derangement of the senses? Maybe they have, not just with the vision, maybe they are deaf. We've got all these complexities that start to get into, seep into this concept of what is really real. Because I could say that cow is red-brown, but someone that's colorblind might have quite a difficulty with that and say, I don't see any red in there at all. So does that change what actually exists in the physical universe? No. I see one thing, the other person sees another. there is a form of some sort of object there that looks like a cow. But do you see how this thing breaks down? Okay. Now this whole idea of reality, I'm going to take it one little step further, and you can start to see some sense or use in certain, let's say, tools. All right? Because we've got this idea of objective reality and subjective reality. Subjective is of the person themselves, their own ideas or thoughts about something or their own experience about something. And then objective is the thing that it actually exists. Whoa, but now we get into that whole color blindness. Well, what is actually real for that person? What's the color? And what's the color that I see? Which one's objective? Now we come to these sort of things. Okay, so let me take another example to sort of mix this up and give another concept. All right, hopefully I'm going to tie these all together. So there was a noise. We're out in the farm, okay? Let's just say this is in colonial times before there was, electricity and that sort of thing. And there's a noise. And I'm with someone else and I say, wow, that was really loud. And the other person says, no, it wasn't loud at all. But there was a noise. So we can have reality to the degree of the fact that there was a noise, but my reality was that it was loud. The other person's reality was that it was not loud. Perhaps it was soft. So then we have the invention of a decibel meter, a sound detector, if you would like to say it that way, that actually takes the physical motions in the physical universe and measures them on a machine. Okay? Now that machine can therefore serve as a basis of objectivity because it is measuring certain things. And I could therefore hear that same noise in modern day and say, oh wow, that was 100 decibels. The other person could then say, yeah, that was pretty loud. And I might say, actually, it's not as loud as an Indian rock concert. You see, so the whole idea of what is real, an objective part, like we could find on a meter or some sort of thing that is calibrated in a certain way, we might use that as the basis of objectivity, saying that that is what is real. But then there's also the subjective part, what my experience is. So anyway, I guess you can see from this that it kind of gets complex. The last point I want to add there is because if someone who was colorblind actually developed a meter to not detect, reds and greens and that part of the visible spectrum in the correct way, they might develop their own meter that interprets things in the physical universe that relays information about their reality. So now we start to get into the whole situation of bias, and you could even extend this to scientific research and what people find or what people develop, let's say, frames, systems that are supposed to be objective can actually be confounded by their own opinions. Okay, so we went pretty deep there. Let me bring it back to that quote. Hopefully you got all that. You might want to re-listen to that. I'd be really interested to hear your opinion. If you do, please post something there and the replies or comments in any of these videos. Okay, but back to the quote. So we're going to break this down. So the first sentence was, reality could be defined as that which appears to be. So when something is to be, it has an existence. It has some form or some detectable, perceivable existence. And it is appearing to be. So appearing, again, we're going to say that that has to do with the senses. So it is able to be perceived. So, oh, it appears to me, and obviously that usually within the derivational meaning of appear is usually with the vision sense, having a look, a certain view or thing that you can be seen. So this appearing to be is that which is confirmed with the vision sense that it does exist. Okay? Reality could be defined as that which appears to be. Now the next sentence, reality is fundamentally agreement. What we agree to be real is real. Okay, so now I reference some of those things that I mentioned earlier. I say that there is a wall. Someone beside me says there is no wall. Now, do they perceive it with their eyes? I actually don't know. Maybe in their mind they see a wall, but they think that they are some sort of magical spiritual being that rides in on unicorns and does various other things. And they think that that is actually not a wall, but it is an apparition of a wall, like a ghost wall, that they can actually walk through it. So again, this is the point. What we agree to be real is real. And if I say there's a wall and someone else says there's a wall, then we have reality. We agree that there is a wall. Okay? And referencing again all those things that I said earlier. Okay, next point. Reality equals the way things appear equals reality as apparency. Okay, so with the me repeating this quote and giving you those examples, maybe you can break down and understand reality a little bit more and why things aren't so simple. Why getting people to agree to things, because as we said, what we agree to be real is real. Getting people to agree on things has so many different complexities and gray areas and, interreactions with different things, interrelations with different things, that it makes it complex. So let me give you a couple of other points that'll help you sort some things out. So we looked at this point within affinity, which had to do with survival. And in that context of affinity, we're looking at the emotion expressed, or the degree of liking expressed toward a thing, depended on whether it was a survival object or an object that was against survival. And again, I'm going to use children because they carry their emotions on their sleeve quite often. And if there was an object that was against the survival of the child and it was far away, they were happy. But if that object started to come closer, maybe it was a ferocious dog or just even a dog, the closer that it came, because affinity has this consideration of distance, the closer something that is against the survival of the child comes, the more dislike they show for it with an intensity. And likewise, a parent is near, they're very happy, the parent starts to go away, which is the parent being a survival thing. The child wants that close to them, the consideration is they want the parent close to them to take care of their survival. The parent moves away and they express an emotion disliking that. Okay, so let's look at that in terms of reality. So, what do you agree to? Fundamentally, because you are trying to survive, you agree with what is helping you survive. Now, this goes even further from, let's say you like avocados and you see an avocado and you agree that it's an avocado and you agree that it's good because it helps you survive. It goes a little bit further than just the point of agreeing with an object that it actually exists in that way. Let's look at it like this. It isn't just the simple objects that you could agree with, but it is other people and other survival, let's say, entities that you don't just agree with them themselves, but the ideas they express. You follow? So look at it this way. There's a celebrity or someone who's doing really well. They are surviving very, very well in life. And what do you want to do? You want to survive. Do you agree with survival? Yes, you agree with survival. So if you agree with survival and you deem that person as someone who is surviving well, then things that they utter, things that they say, guess what? You're going to tend to agree with them. Simply on the basis of you agreeing with survival and you allocating or deeming that thing to be survival, you're going to agree with those things that are said. So you see the way that they get different celebrities to advertise different products or say different things is that that person looked upon as survival is going to say things which will be more easily received or agreed with. So now just that one particular point should alert you to the fact that things that you say, things that you agree with, opinions that you have, may not actually be your own. And here we come to a concept, and I'm going a bit deeper on this one, here we come to a concept that I'm going to term granularity. Wow, that's a pretty big word. So what are we talking about? We're talking about grains. So if we have sand, which has these grains of sand, and if you've ever picked up sand at the beach and have a look at your hand, you'll see there's little grains of sand, which are the ground up shells. And the coarseness or fineness of that grain will be basically the size of it. So you could take a bunch of sand, a handful of sand from the beach, and you could inspect it. And you might even be able to see with your own eyes very clearly the size of each of the grains of sand. Now, let's take that and compare it to perhaps sugar. Now, I'm using sugar again because it's probably something you're more commonly accustomed to. You can take some sugar in your hand and you can see the fine grains. And then take a look at something like icing sugar. Now, in icing sugar, if you spread that around, there's still grains there, but they're very, very fine. Okay, so what does this granularity or the size of the grains have to do with reality? Well, it has to do with it in this way. Follow me with this. We as humans like to keep things simple. We like to align our thoughts. We like to align our survival in a very efficient way. And we always want to be right and we always want to survive. So we kind of compartment our ideas on how we're doing things in kind of like rough sketches or rough ideas on things. And if someone who we think is surviving well, they're a survival point, says something, then we'll go, yeah, that sounds pretty good. You know, that person's surviving and they think that, then I'll think that too. But to what degree of fineness, what granularity, do you have a fine grain understanding of that concept that they said? Do you understand the points of proof, the experience or whatever that person had? Do you have your own experience that agrees with or adds to the fact that you agree with that person? Or are you using someone else's reality? So I use this term granularity or fine grain and coarse grain to basically look at the difference between you having a fine appreciation yourself from your own experience and your own knowledge would be a very fine grain understanding of something. In other words, such an understanding would be that you could explain the concept again, why you feel that way, all the different parts, all the different observations and facts that align with why you think that way. Or do you have a rough grain understanding of things, or rough grain reality, where you've just taken that piece of information and you've inserted it into your head as, that means I'm going to survive if I use that, because you've just taken it from somewhere else, because to be efficient, you have to kind of just slot it in there. You can't kind of like just take it and go, that's interesting, I wonder how they came up with that, and then go into the whole research of it. Maybe you should in some of these cases, but the point is we have this variation of rough grain understanding all the way down to fine grain understanding. And that's how reality and survival are linked together. Hopefully you got that. All right, another thing I wanted to talk to you about is agreement and disagreement and reality. So now we get into something that is related to flows. And if you looked at some of my earlier videos, you'll appreciate flows coming, let's say, in kind of two directions, coming towards you or going away from you. But then there's also a flow which is not going in any particular direction, but going in all directions at once, or coming in all directions towards you. Hopefully that didn't get confusing. But let's go to this flow, inflow and outflow. So when we're looking at reality, when you are perceiving things in the physical universe, you're receiving a flow. All right, so whatever it is, the object, it might even be a sound, it might even be a smell. You're receiving those things. They come to you. They're existing, and then they come to your awareness. So that direction of flow, just like a river flows from, the mountains to the ocean, the source is the mountain where the water is falling, and then the water flows toward the sea. So that direction is kind of like the mountain exists, or that thing in the physical universe exists, and it flows toward you. So that's an inflow. And then in the other way, so that was mountain towards the sea, which is inflow. The thing in the physical universe is the mountain. You are the sea, and it's flowing towards you. You follow me? And then we have the opposite direction. So in this case, I would be the mountain, and I'm sending out the water from my edges out to the sea. So that would be an outflow. Now, reality has to do with both of those flows. An agreement is basically the receiving of a flow. And disagreement, so not having reality, is sending an outflow. So that's an interesting one. I want you to take a look at that. I don't have time to cover that one in full detail, but I am going to in the next video. But have a consideration of that and see what inflow and outflow with regard to agreement and disagreement mean for you or mean in life. I want you to break that down a little bit. Think about that until the next video. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover today. And in the next video, I'm going to look a little bit more at bias and how you form your own ideas, and this agreement and disagreement and how that works with things. And I am breaking this up, and I am leaving you on a ledge and leaving you with something perhaps that you don't understand, but I want you to start to think. I want you to start to look at the information being presented and see how you can apply it to your life. See how it helps with your understanding of life. That's all I have time for. Sinead for today.